There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 9 p.m. and this is a very special edition of Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Ben Leo. Tonight, I bring you an exclusive interview with Eric Trump, the businessman's son of US President-elect Donald Trump that really does lay bare the future of UK-US relations.
You know, be nice, be kind. We have got the greatest relationship of two superpowers, arguably ever.
Be nice, be kind. The Trumps fire a warning shot to gobby Labour politicians after reports the US will slap us with £20 billion of trade tariffs.
I don't give a damn about the mayor of London. These are not things that keep me up at night. Listen,
does your dad? So, is it time for the likes of Trump whinger Sadiq Khan to put up and shut up?
I think it's an awfully silly thing when countries like the UK are suggesting that we start launching missiles deep into Russian territory.
A truly grave warning after Sir Keir Starmer allows Ukraine to finally use long-range British missiles in Russian territory.
I guess my message to them would be, go out, fight like hell, make your voices heard, and hopefully you'll achieve the same result that we achieved on the opposite side of the pond.
We've got your back, a rallying cry for British farmers in their fight against the government.
Stations like the BBC, I think if you fast forward 10 years, if they keep it up and they show no independent thought, no independent journalism, are going to fail to exist.
No love lost between the Trumps and the BBC either. Meanwhile...
So it's better to say you and your father and your family and the team, GB News fans.
We're GB News fans.
Looks like they love GB News instead. Of course they do. Elsewhere tonight. How to blow up your brand courtesy of Jaguar. Aren't they meant to be flogging cars? Tonight's panel are ready to go too. I'm joined by Director of Popular Conservatives Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the former Labour Party candidate Susie Stride, plus a very special guest, political comedian and podcaster Eric McElroy. Very good evening to you. Thank you for your company. Explosive insights into Donald Trump's looming presidency coming up, including a fierce warning to our Trump-hating politicians here in the UK. A very big 2 hours coming up. But first, your news headlines with Sophie Reaper.
Thank you, Ben. The time is just after 9 o'clock and these are your latest headlines. Today, there have been unconfirmed reports that Ukraine has fired long-range British Storm Shadow missiles into Russian territory for the first time. A spokesperson for Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said his office would not be commenting on reports or operational matters. Britain has previously said Ukraine could use Storm Shadow missiles within Ukrainian territory, but the government has been pressing the US to allow their use to strike targets inside Russia for several months. Speaking exclusively to GB News, Tory party leader Kemi Badenoch said we need to do everything in our power to support Ukraine.
I would like to see de-escalation, but that needs to start with the Russians, who are the aggressor in this conflict. I believe that supporting Ukraine is the right thing. This is a proxy war that Ukraine is fighting on behalf of the rest of Europe, and I think we need to do everything we can to support them. Using British missiles at a time when we believe that Ukraine is fighting for all of Europe, in my view, is not the right way to look at things. Do we want Ukraine to win this war or not? And are we prepared to support them to win this war? That is what I...
In other news, Lambeth Palace has said Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, who's quitting over his handling of the John Smythe abuse case, will complete his official duties by January 6th. In a statement, Lambeth Palace has said, following the announcement last week of his resignation as the Archbishop of Canterbury, Archbishop Justin intends to complete his official duties by the upcoming Feast of Epiphany on January 6th. Archbishop Justin intends very little public-facing activity between now and Epiphany, but plans to honour a small number of remaining commitments. A report has found that too many children in England, including some as young as 11, are carrying knives because they feel unsafe in their neighbourhoods. The charity, which surveyed 10,000 children aged 13 to 17, found that 20% of teenagers have been victims of violence in the past 12 months. One-third of teenage children reported avoiding areas, whilst around 27% alter their travel routes or avoid public transport altogether in order to stay safe. And in weather news, snow will continue to fall over the weekend. That's what the Met Office has said. Between 2 and 5 centimetres of snow is expected widely over the coming days, whilst it could reach 10 centimetres in some parts of the north, with higher ground potentially even seeing up to 15 to 20 centimetres. Meanwhile, over the weekend, heavy snow is expected on Saturday, followed by a rapid thaw and rain on Saturday night across much of the UK. Those are your GB News headlines. I'm Sophie Reaper, and now it's back to Ben.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good evening to you. Yesterday, I flew to Aberdeen to interview Eric Trump, the son of President-elect Donald Trump, ahead of the beautiful new Trump golf course opening in Scotland next summer. It was a revealing fireside chat with Mr Trump's businessman's son that covered everything from their emphatic election victory, the role of Labour activists during the election, Sadiq Khan's big mouth, the war in Ukraine, trade deals, tariffs, the BBC, of course, and the plight of British farmers too. What will become apparent over the next 2 hours is just what the future of the UK-US special relationship looks like under a second Trump term in the White House. Indeed, in addition to that, Britain's role in the rapidly changing West and what Donald Trump really thinks of our new Labour government. We begin by talking about the Trump Organisation's massive investments in Scotland before later getting into the nitty-gritty of US-UK politics.
Perfect, hello.
Thanks, man. I do allowing me to get into
Welcome back to the UK, and dare I say it, America back on the world stage.
Thank you.
Your reaction to that absolutely phenomenal election, what are you expecting it?
I was expecting it, but I'm too superstitious to say it. We worked so hard as a family. My father worked so tirelessly. I was out there every single day. My wife was out there every single day. She was running the RNC. I was in every state around the country. Don was out there. I mean, it was really kind of a big family effort, but my father did the impossible. And this wasn't a small win. This was a gigantic win, not in terms of just the Electoral College. He had 312 electoral votes, which is one of the highest ever, but also won the popular vote in the United States by close to 5 million votes. And it was a tremendous victory, and it's total vindication for so much of the nonsense that they put us through for so many years.
So did you have any internal polling suggesting that the win would be as emphatic as it was?
Yeah, we ddid. In fact, every single time I looked at a poll, it just reinforced the fact that we were going to win. Yet every single time you turn on the TV, you'd have kind of very liberal stations in the United States, and many of the same ones over here. You know them as well as I do. And they'd be kind of spinning a counter narrative to that, and it made you actually question, the true lead that you were seeing on paper, and all the data points that we saw came through. It was a massive referendum in the United States. People were sick and tired of the nonsense. People were sick and tired of the liberal policies. They were sick and tired of seeing what was happening to our country, to our patriotism, to our economy. They were sick and tired of seeing the wars break out all over the world. They were sick and tired of seeing us spend hundreds of billions of dollars in every war on in foreign lands and not actually invest in our own people. They were sick and tired of high taxes. In fact, you're dealing with many of the same things over here, but there was a massive referendum in the United States where people said, we've had enough, and we want sanity back. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And I think you're going to see the same thing follow in a lot of elections around the world, really to come.
But I was saying to you off air, there's a feeling here that we're maybe 4 or 5 years behind the US. We've just, of course, elected a Labour government, which kind of feels like people over here are saying it's kind of the start of our Biden era, and we need to get through that. And actually, it feels like now that people like your father, the incoming administration, people like Elon Musk, they seem to care, this is the argument, they seem to care more about the UK at the moment than, say, some of the politicians leading the charge over here.
I have a general rule. I try not to opine on, on politicians in foreign lands. It's just never ends up well. But many of the things that you're seeing over here are things that we saw, as you said, 5-10 years ago. Censorship.
Yeah.
You're seeing some of the issues that the UK is running into. You see the war on farmers right now. It's very sad to see, but we saw this in the United States in a very big way. You saw the war on oil and gas. We saw that in the United States, and people frankly revolted when their oil and gas prices went through the roof, when they could no longer afford to heat their homes, when they could no longer afford to, drive their cars, when, gas prices went up 4x compared to my father's, first term in office. And people revolted. And I suspect the same sentiments are going to happen, on the side of the pond and, in the UK and in Europe in general.
The new course here is opening when? Summer next year, is that right?
It's going to open up in July, and it's going to be the best anywhere. We've built the best 36 holes anywhere on Earth, and there's actually no question, right? And I can say that with true confidence without trying to be bombastic. Obviously, the old course, which is the first 18 holes we built in Aberdeen in Scotland, it's rated the top of every single list around the world, and we're building a second course that is second to none anywhere. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any course anywhere on Earth that can beat it. Is that good? And we have an unbelievable team here. And I'm telling you, we put our heart and soul into every inch of it. Nothing is good enough. We push and we push and we push. And I've spent, hundreds of hours walking that course and know every little corner of it. And every single time we refine, we make it better. And it's the Great Dunes of Scotland. It's the greatest natural land on Earth. And truly, it might be the last links course ever built, in the UK, because of various regulations and other things that they're doing. But we're so proud of it. Trump Scotland, Trump Aberdeen. It's going to be the greatest golf facility anywhere on the planet.
And you walked the course today, I think, or tried to at least. What was the snow like? Could you see the floor?
A lot of snow. A lot of snow. It was wet and snowy, but
you hit some balls.
I was no. You're not finding any balls out there today. It's either going to bury, and you're certainly not finding them, but. No, it was an amazing day. I mean, we've assembled the greatest team on Earth. I mean, these are the greatest shapers, greatest golf contractors. I mean, these are the artists of the golf world, and I mean, immense talent, and the greatest architects and the greatest professionals. And then we instill kind of unlimited money, because that's what it takes to create the best. Yeah. But tremendous heart and soul, which it also takes to create the best. And we're a company that cares. We've invested a lot in Scotland, between Turnberry, Aberdeen. It's a country we adore. It's a country we love. Obviously, it's the birthplace of my grandmother, and kind of our genetic roots. And it's a place that I really kind of consider at this point a second home. I'm not sure if there's any foreigner who's probably been to this country more times than I have. If you look at my passport, I filled many passports with the stamps over the years. But we've been to Scotland hundreds of times, and love the people, love the culture, love the land, and obviously love the heritage.
With this investment, it's a massive sign that, of course, you believe in Britain, you believe in the community up here in Scotland. Do you feel you get that back?
Yeah. No, not always, to tell you the truth. But that doesn't matter. Listen, we're big boys. We don't need it to come back. But I feel like we get it back from the people, because I think we're beloved by the Scots. I can't tell you how much support we have every single time I come over here. The love is tremendous. I can tell you the people in the local communities around us, they appreciate what we did. We saved Turnberry from the brink of absolute ruin, and this is the greatest course on earth, and one of the greatest hotels on earth. We put hundreds of millions of dollars into it. I was over here 50, 60, 70 times as we were building that course. We restored every window, every crown molding, and we did so with a lot of passion, a lot of heart. And the people adore us in Ayrshire and those areas for that. And obviously what we've built, here on the east coast of Scotland, northeast, it's unbelievable. And I think the people are truly appreciative that, we're a company that comes in and we put our money where our mouth is, and we actually invest dollars and we help the local economy. And listen, there are people that take their shots at us. We see that every single day. We saw that last week, as a matter of fact. I think it's foolish. I think it's counterproductive in so many ways, but believe me, it doesn't keep me up at night. There are plenty of other things in the world that keep me up at night, but that's not one of them. No, we've built a true national treasure. I don't think that there's 36 holes on Earth that even come close to what we've built in Aberdeen. And obviously Turnberry, in terms of Turnberry, speaks for itself, right? Everybody knows the legendary Turnberry, but we've built two of the greatest properties anywhere. We've put our blood, sweat, and tears into them, and we're immensely proud of them.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell. Well, it was glorious. There were whispers that your father may open the course next year, but that was before he, of course, won that election win. Do you think we may see him come and officially open the course? I mean, can he even? Has he announced the date?
I think he'll be very happy. During his first term as president, I was over here with him, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was really, really beautiful. As a United States president had landed in Prestwick, of all places, and there's Air Force One, and there's the big Trump plane sitting next to it at Prestwick Airport, and it was really, really beautiful. I mean, Marine One, the helicopters are flying around over Turnberry, and I can promise you, my father will be back in the UK. Obviously, he loves UK, he loves Scotland. He'll be back here. He'll certainly be here for the opening.
Yeah, we saw that with the, I don't know if you've seen that clip online of your father on, I think he's on a plane going through the new photographic book. Yeah. He's got, you can see the love and the joy he's got for the royals and so on.
OK, I'm joined now by political comedian and podcaster Eric McElroy, the director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and former Labour Party candidate Susie Stride. Good evening to you all. Thank you for joining me. A massive investment, Eric, in Scotland. It's going to be big news for the country up there. Do you get on board with the notion, which Eric agreed with, that we are potentially 5 years behind the US here and we're just entering our so-called Joe Biden era?
Well, 5 years behind the US. I mean, we're at the beginning of a new government. Across the world, we've seen a push against incumbency, and it seems like that was one of the things that caught the Biden White House and pulled them out of power, just like it pulled the Tories out of power here. So I think that wave we're definitely seeing now. Whether or not there's going to be a big right-wing swing for the UK in the future, I don't know if we've seen that yet.
Mark, we will get into, in the next three parts, Sadiq Khan, Labour, his message to farmers. It was a really in-depth interview. So far, do you think the Trump administration will care about Britain? Because the rhetoric I've heard over recent weeks is Donald doesn't care about the UK. He only cares what's in it for himself. This investment in Scotland, for example, signifies that he does care.
Yeah, he does. And we just heard from his son about their Scottish roots. From everything I can judge, the president-elect is an Anglophile. What that will mean on policy, I don't know. And you know what, Ben? I think your view, your implication that we might be 5 years behind is about right. On Eric's point, 2024 has been the most democratic year in human history. More elections with more ballots cast than seen ever in human history. And in every single one of those elections, the incumbent has gone backwards. Not always lost, but has always gone backwards. And I think shortly into this Labour government, you can already see the backlash that might be building in 4 years' time at our next election.
OK, I'll slip you that fiver for that compliment in the break. Adam Brooks, I asked Eric Trump later in the show whether the UK should side with the US under Donald Trump or the socialist EU, as one of his economic advisors said. Who should we look to for guidance?
For me, it's got to be Trump. I think the EU has spent decades trying to control us and trying to sort of minimise us. That's why we Brexited, and that's why I voted that. I didn't want them to control us. A trade bloc became a sort of huge government. So I'm glad we left, and I really want to work with Trump because I think he's probably just saved the West from absolute craziness. I mean, as well, I'd like to ask Eric if I could have a free golf membership. That sounds unbelievable.
It's a beautiful course. So there's going to be 2 courses up there. I mean, it's just insane. It was snowing as well when we went yesterday. It was like something out of a Christmas postcard or something. Susie Stride, you were in America recently, knocking doors for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz now. I bet you're sick of the sight of Eric Trump.
No, I'm not. Look, I'm one of those people. The American people, and I had no right to kind of tell the American people how to vote anyway, but the American people have voted for Donald Trump. There are good reasons why they have voted for Donald Trump. And I think we now have to cheer him on and hope that he does a really good job. Also hope that he doesn't put trade tariffs against us and whatnot. And so, no, I'm not sick of him. And also, they got some things that the Democrats didn't. They understood the working class, and I'm very big on that, And I think the Democrats got to listen to that warning, and as do the Labour Party. That's, for me, one of the biggest, in some ways, parallels. Forget the working class at your peril, as it were.
Talking about tariffs, of course, there has been rumours that the US will slap £20 billion worth of tariffs on the UK. I did ask Eric this, and he gives a very good answer. Okay. What do you think his answer is?
Well, I really hope that they don't,
What's your feeling? What's your intuition?
I don't know. This is the thing about him. It's actually one of his greatest weaknesses and strengths that you can't really predict what he's going to do, I'm going to go optimistic and say, no, he's going to go with us.
OK, we'll wait and see. That part is coming up over the next hour or two, including he had this much to say as well about farmers. So they had a massive rallying cry for our farmers. He was aware of the protest going on yesterday. This is what he had to say.
I guess my message to them would be go out, fight like hell, make your voices heard, and hopefully you'll achieve the same result that we achieved on the opposite side of the pond.
Plenty more red meat to come, and that's coming up next. This is Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is about pulchronomics, which is the often hidden, often controversial economics of beauty. And there's this guy, he's called, here it says Anil Hammermesh, but I think they've missed out the D, so I'm guessing he's Daniel rather than Anil, which he might be, though. He might be, or he might be anal for an Anil Hammermesh, maybe. That's his unfortunate name. But basically, he's looked into how ugliness affects people, and it turns out he's discovered that ugly people are less attractive. And that affects them for the rest of their life. Now, where this does get interesting, it is worrying because, of course, it's going to lead to the ugly rights movement, ugly pride march down some dirty back street. And but I remember hearing about this at the time. People born in the UK between March 3rd and March 9th, 1958 were part of this massive survey that was done, which was finding about what would happen to them later in life, and it went through a number of different factors. But I didn't know this. The teachers were also asked to rate their pupils on attractiveness.
Yeah, it's a bit pedo-y.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that would wash now, but it was bone structure and whether they're symmetrical, that kind of thing.
You should probably really have a committee of at least half a dozen teachers. Take a sort of standardised view across the... You might get a different point of view from the biology teacher, from the Latin master.
You suggest this to a school, and then we can see if we get it going.
It's interesting, though. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but generally speaking, it is understood within sort of psychological, psychometrics and so on, that IQ is the thing that most closely maps your outcomes, generally speaking. But the idea of beauty is the one that isn't discussed. And there is genuinely a theory that this is actually the great determinant of your life chances.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe. Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. I'm about to bring you the next part of my exclusive interview with Eric Trump. We start off by talking about Donald Trump's relationship with the media, wars happening all across the world, and what Donald Trump wants from Sir Keir Starmer in relation to those long-range missiles currently heading into Russia.
What the celebrations like? Oh, Nigel was with you, of course, in Palm Beach. What was it like?
Your Nigel was with us. He was a wonderful man.
What's he like? Was he on good form?
Nigel?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Nigel was probably celebrating more so than anybody in that room, but no, we were all in great form. Listen, we left it all on the field. There's nothing more we could have done. As a family, we ran 20 hours a day, every single day. No sleep, no event after event, interview after event. I mean, there was nothing more as a family we could have done. And to have the victory that we had, again, this wasn't a close call, right? You had every liberal station over here in the U.S. Yes, it's going to be a very close election. It's going to be razor thin. There was nothing razor thin about the election, right? I mean, we won every single swing state. We won the popular vote, which is unheard of for a Republican to do, but by 5 million. We won, one of the largest electoral college counts. And it was a beautiful night. And I remember going to my father at some point. I was up with our team, and we were getting the raw data in from the states. And I remember coming down after hearing, and I went to him, I go, we just won Pennsylvania. And this was a couple hours before they actually called Pennsylvania. He looked at me, and I'm like, the raw data is looking really good. Well, it's on the early vote. And then and a minute or two later, Elon Musk was sitting right next to him and all of us. And Elon turns around and, sorry, you just won Pennsylvania. And I said, I just said that to him. It was funny, and we all kind of chuckled a little bit. But it was an amazing night. I mean, it was an amazing night. They tortured us for years, the way the media treated us, the way the government treated us, the way they weaponized government. They tried to impeach him twice. They raided his home. They pulled him off of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I mean, they tried to remove him from the ballot in Colorado. They tried to remove him from the ballot in Maine. They weaponized every attorney general against him, against me, every district attorney. I was subpoenaed 111 times for doing absolutely nothing wrong. They made up dirty dossiers. They made up the Russia hoax. And 1,000 other things that the general public didn't even see. And despite that, and by the way, and he got 98% negative media coverage in our country. And despite that, the people of our country came out and overwhelmingly voted him as president of the United States. It was beyond a referendum. It was a referendum on the system. It was a referendum on the deep state. It was a referendum on the media. And it was an entire country standing up and saying, we've had enough of this nonsense. We want the greatest economy. We want safe borders. We want a safe world. We want America to be the greatest superpower. We want capable leadership. We want somebody fighting for the United States of America, being a cheerleader for the United States of America. All of the things that we haven't had under Joe Biden, all of the things that we wouldn't have had under Kamala Harris. And I could tell you it was a beautiful night, and one that I'll never forget. Again, people want somebody that they know is going to be a fighter for their country. People want somebody who's going to, fix their economy, allow them to live what we call over there the American dream, right? It's so coveted around the world. And listen, the American dream was being lost in America. And, frankly, that same concept is being lost in so many countries around the world. You feel it over here. So much of Europe feels it. Look at all these war-torn zones all over, senseless conflicts that don't need it, right? People's houses are gone. Their apartment buildings are bombed. Their children are killed. Beautiful young boys who are 22, 23 years old. They're fighting in dirty trenches. They come around a little corner and they get shot in the head. For what reason?
Thousands a day in Ukraine. Young Russian men, young Ukrainian men.
And you go on YouTube every single night, and the first thing that pops up is some video of some drone blowing some poor kid to smithereens. And you're paying for it, and we're paying for it, and it's crazy, and it's sad, and it's senseless. And I think people want the games to stop. And Donald Trump will stop those games. Trump will stop the wars. He'll stop the nonsense. He'll stop the violence. I think he'll get the hostages back in record time. I think he'll get some of our hostages back before he even enters office. You have Hamas that's now standing down. You have Iran that's taking a very different posture than they were before. He's not even president. He's president-elect. And you already see transformational change around the world. And that's not just good for the United States of America. That's good for world order. That's good for all Western civilization. I mean, that's a net benefit. And, I'm proud of him. I'm really, as a son, I'm really proud of what he's accomplished. And trust me, it would have been a hell of a lot easier for this guy to pack it in. Say, you know what, this isn't worth it. I've got the most beautiful golf courses in the world. I'll go play Aberdeen every single day. Over the course of a summer, I'll have the greatest summer ever. I'll go play with my grandkids. I've got the best planes. I've got the best properties. I've got the best hotels. I can do anything I want in the world. And, instead the guy goes out every single day, 20 hours a day, and grinds and grinds and grinds. And they put him in freezing cold courtrooms. And yet he grinds and goes to fundraisers late at night and makes it work, and press conference after press conference. And you see the fruits of kind of that labor now in terms of kind of the world. And I think the whole world is viewing life through a very different lens. I think a big weight has been lifted off so many people's backs. I think it's given hope to so many people, and not just in the United States, all around the world. I really think it's restored hope and faith. The same thing can happen in other countries around this world. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And, I think he deserves the credit for all of it.
Let me ask you about Joe Biden, because I think reports today suggest that Ukraine has fired the first long-range US missiles into Russian territory. And I guess the feeling is it kind of feels like it's a passing shot from the outgoing administration to cause as much trouble as they can before they go. Is that accurate? What's your father's assessment? Have you spoken to your dad today about the Russia situation?
Yeah, the Russia situation is incredibly sad. And my father, I can tell you, just wants to stop the death and destruction. It's just that simple. So oftentimes he'll get hit in the United States. Well, you're siding with Putin, you're siding with Zelensky. I'm not, and he literally says, I'm not siding with anybody. You know what I'm siding with? I want to have young boys stop dying in dirty trenches for no reason whatsoever. And I'm going to stop sending U.S. money, overseas, hundreds of billions of dollars at a clip. You know what I want to do? I want to take that money. I want to invest in our schools so we have the best educational system in the world. I want to invest in our roads. I want to invest in productive things, not death, destruction, and 155 millimeter howitzer shells ripping through residential buildings and turning them into dust. And I can tell you that on the top of my father's priorities is ending the chaos, not just there, but also between, Israel and Palestine and, Iran and so many other places that, just want to see death for no reason whatsoever. It's counterproductive. And so I don't know what Biden's thinking. I question virtually everything that he's done over the last 4 years. I mean, in fact, if you were to take the contrarian position to just about every one of his policies, we'd be a substantially better country right now than we are. Hence the reason my father was elected. So I don't know what he was thinking, allowing them to use U.S. missiles deep into Russian territory. Do I think it's brilliant? No, I don't think it's brilliant.
What would you like to see the UK do on that front? Because Sir Keir Starmer today, right now, is under pressure to follow suit and give permission.
Yeah.
What do you want the UK to do? What does your father want Sir Keir Starmer to do?
Here's good news about me. I don't need to make these decisions.
Yeah.
I can run the greatest properties in the world and not have to think about
what's your feeling?
The missile strategy of the UK as it pertains to the largest nuclear superpower. I would urge everybody to remember that Russia is the largest nuclear superpower, tied exactly with the United States in terms of the amount of weapons that we each have. I think it's an awfully silly thing when countries like the UK are, suggesting that we start launching missiles deep into Russian territory. I don't think many good things could come out of that. But that's just my gut intuition.
So I was going to ask, do you know if your father has spoken to Putin yet? Because there were some reports that post-election he may try and sort out the Ukraine situation out before January.
I don't believe he's spoken to him yet.
Okay.
OK, no call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin just yet. But, watch this space. I'm joined now by my esteemed panel, Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the former Labour Party candidate Susie Stride, and special guest political comedian and podcaster Eric McElroy. Eric, will Donald Trump stop wars around the world? Has he given hope to the rest of the world in the wake of his election win?
I don't know if hope is the word that I would use. I mean, I think that, Ukraine is resigning itself to they're going to have to accept whatever happens, because Trump is probably going to try and cut them off for support and funding, because, I mean, he's signposted that quite clearly. He's constantly praising dictators around the world. Those are the people that he likes to hang out with. A lot of the people who voted for him over the Israeli issue, I think are going to find an interesting result there, because, I mean, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was making statements this spring about how wonderful the beachfront property in Gaza would be. So will some of these things get settled? Yes. Will they be the way people expected them to or hoped? I don't think that's likely.
Yeah. You could argue that Jared Kushner was just, laying out his aspirations for the future of a prosperous Palestine. But Mark Littlewood, wars ending under Donald Trump, and also his comments there, Eric Trump, about Sir Keir Starmer, a grave warning not to get involved with these long-range missiles.
Yeah, look, I think it's extraordinary that President Biden decided to make this decision, this sort of change of the terms of engagement so late. It seems to me hard to believe that was a sensible military decision. Trump in his first term, there was peace. He, I think, didn't get enough credit about reaching out to, say, even North Korea. I'm afraid the President of the United States has to do deals with dictators around the world because a large chunk of the world is not liberal or democratic. And one would have thought, right, at some point you've got to bring the Ukraine issue to a conclusion. It's unlikely that Ukraine's going to get back Crimea and all of the contested territory. So what might a suboptimal conclusion look like? So I have a little bit of trepidation here, but it's interesting that the Republican Party now seem to be the kind of isolationist pro-peace party, and the Democrats appear to be the neocons.
Yeah, 180 in lots of aspects. Adam Brooks, a UK-made long-range Storm Shadow missile has landed in Russia today. The Downing Street isn't saying anything about it. I mean, is this a grave escalation?
I believe it is a grave escalation, and I think it's a miscalculation. I think at some point Putin will punish us somehow, whether it's cyber warfare or another way, whether it's our energy security that they come for again.
Do you not think he'll hang on for Trump, though? If he can just brave out...
I don't think that Russia and Putin will take kindly to our government doing this. And I think they're going to want to hit back some way. I don't think it will escalate into some sort of nuclear war, World War III. I really don't. But we will pay for this, and it was needless.
Needless, from your leader, Sir Keir Starmer, Susie.
Yeah, I'm just going to say I'm astounded at the lack of respect for history. The closest thing you've got to Hitler now is Putin. You cannot have someone invading a sovereign territory and say, we're going to let them do that. Who do you think's next? Isolationism, for me, is selfishness. You look at, I am honestly astounded by this. You back off Putin. Putin is an evil, dangerous man. Where do you think he's going next? Do you think he's going to twiddle his thumbs and just go home? I do have kids, and do you know what? I am really glad. I am really glad. Do you know what? If Russia invaded this country, would I say we're going to just sit here and twiddle our thumbs? No, I'd say we're going to... And do you know what? I'm so grateful that people before us, Winston Churchill and people in my family, and I'm sure people in yours, went out and fought against fascism. And genuinely, I think these conversations are dangerous.
What happens when your kids get pulled up to
Can I just say something? I'm sorry. Do you genuinely think we should let someone like Putin run riot in a sovereign nation? What message do we send?
What message
do we send? I'm sorry. Well, it really, well, when the Americans said that about World War II, what happened? It came to their doorstep. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I've just been in Pearl Harbor. Absolutely just so appalling
yes or no, would you
and
allow
sad.
your kids to be sent there?
Well, yes or no. Do you think you should let Putin run riot and invade a sovereign nation?
Would you be happy for them to go there?
That question.
Let history, you'll see history repeating itself. Can't have bullies.
Very quickly, answer Adam's question, and I'll get him to answer yours.
In this situation, if Russia invaded this country, our sovereign land, I would go fight. Wait, I don't know why you're talking about my son. As a woman, I would go fight.
And they were called up tomorrow to go to Ukraine, would you let them?
No, I think that's a different situation. We're not sending British soldiers.
We are now firing missiles.
That's what it will lead to.
No, I don't know if that is true. I don't know if that is true.
All right, we've got to move on because we've got plenty more to come, including Eric Trump really gets into the nitty-gritty of Labour, Sadiq Khan, the comments Khan, the Mayor of London, has made about his father in recent weeks, and it does get very, very juicy indeed. But we're going to put the brakes on that for just a tick because iconic car manufacturer Jaguar, you've probably seen this today, and it absolutely blew my mind, but I love the story. They followed in the footsteps and boots by releasing their own woke ad, I guess of the likes of Budweiser and Gillette. We're going to debate that next. Oh, first of all, though, how would you like to win an entire Christmas on us this year? Because we're giving you the chance to do that with the very latest Great British giveaway. Here's all the details you need to win.
There's just 35 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's snow in the forecast for parts of Scotland and also later on in parts of the southwest. But for many of us, it's going to be dry, plenty of sunshine, but it is going to be feeling cold. That's all thanks to this northerly flow that's stretching across the country, bringing us that risk of snow and the cold feel to the weather. So plenty of wintry showers moving in their way across northern parts of Scotland. These falling as sleet and snow, particularly across high ground, where we're expecting some significant accumulation. For much of the country, there's lots of dry weather on offer this evening, plenty of clear skies, so a sharp frost and plenty of icy stretches by the time we reach the morning. And then some outbreaks of rain just clipping the parts of the southwest by the time we reach Thursday morning too. So plenty of wintry showers continuing across northern parts of Scotland, these feeding inland at times too, with some sleet and some snow. Some just feeding into northern parts of Northern Ireland, perhaps northern parts of Wales too. But for many across northern parts of England, elsewhere across England and Wales, plenty of clear skies to go around. So once again, a sharp frost and some icy stretches. So do take care for the Thursday morning commute. Across the southwest, though, a different story. We have outbreaks of rain just clipping Devon and Cornwall, later on into southern parts of England and Wales. This heavy at times and falling as sleet and snow over high ground, though it's not out of the question that some flurries could fall to lower levels too, which may cause some disruption. Wintry showers continuing across the north, but once again across Wales and the central slice of the UK, plenty of sunshine to go around, though it is going to continue to feel cold. As we head into Wednesday, there is still a risk of some snow showers, particularly around any exposed coast. But once again, there's still going to be plenty of sunshine on the cards. Still feeling particularly chilly, though, especially in any brisk winds that will catch across any exposed coasts. To finish off the week and into the weekend, we're expecting further unsettled weather with heavy rain and some strong winds. So do keep an eye on our forecasts.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Ben Leo in for Patrick Christys tonight. Coming up, more of my Eric Trump interview. He goes after Sadiq Khan, Labour activists. It's all coming in 15 minutes. But now, have you seen this new Jaguar advert? They're meant to sell cars, right? A British heritage brand. You think of Jaguar, you think racy, you think sexy. Look at this new advert. Not a car in sight, not an idea, really, what the... If you watch this advert without sound, I mean, you're watching it now without sound. Have you any idea what this advert's for? Live vivid, delete ordinary, a bunch of androgynous people looking very weird in very strange outfits. Lots of furore about this online today. And we unearthed this clip. This is the new brand marketing manager for Jaguar. Is it any surprise they've made this new advert? Check this out.
We're committed to fostering a diverse, inclusive, and unified culture that is representative not only of the people who use our products, but in a society in which we all live. And we're on a transformative journey of our own, driven by a belief in diversity, inclusion, creativity, policy, and most importantly, action.
Oh, God, make it stop, make it stop. And by the way, he's meant to be a professional. Why is he wearing a see-through sequin? Where's your shirt and tie? Joining me now to debate this are motoring author and co-founder of the International XK Jaguar Club, Philip Porter, and social commentator Amy Ansell. Amy, what's this about? Why are Jaguar going down this very strange route?
I think it's fantastic. I think that ad is thrilling and exciting and like a coming attraction as to what's to come. I mean, if I want to describe it, it's definitely bold and artistic and imaginative. I don't know why you're using the word woke. It's simply because there's 6 incredibly cool looking people. I mean, that could be an ad for, you know, John Lewis, and we wouldn't be able to criticize and say it's woke. I mean, look at the Christmas adverts every year for John Lewis. Do we see a department store in any of them? Usually not. And many big brands, like during the Super Bowl in America, they pay $6 million, $7 million, $13, $14 million for a 1-minute ad. And so many successful ads led to great, did not have the product in it. So Philip, I think that this is a fantastic rebrand, and who knows, maybe there could be a part 2. I'm really excited to what's to come.
All right, well, at least someone thinks it's fantastic. Philip, have Jaguar got a death wish here? What's going on?
Well, I have to agree with you. I think it's commercial suicide. I think it's a bad joke. It's hilarious.
Why have they done it then? I mean, why have they done it? Surely they need to at least include a car in the advert. I mean, what's going on?
I couldn't agree more. It's extraordinary. It could be an advert for anything. And that guy talking, he sounded more like a politician to me than somebody trying to sell a car brand.
What's the issue with Jaguar then at the moment? Why have they gone for this rebrand? Have you any idea what the thinking is behind it?
Well, I suppose the world is going crazy thinking electric cars, electric vehicles are the answer. And they feel they've got to do this. But they're putting all their eggs in one basket. They're going totally electric. That is out of kilter with people like Toyota, etc., who are having second thoughts. It's not necessarily the answer. I think it's a crazy, very short-term, ill thought-out strategy.
Amy, why are Jaguar doing this when we've had Bud Lights, we've had Gillette, we've had Disney, we've had Netflix? I can go on and on and on. They've all come croppers. They've gone woke and they've gone broke. Why are Jaguar thinking they're so special?
Well, once again, I don't consider it a woke commercial. I think
But it
it's
is.
modern.
I know you keep saying that, but it is absolutely woke, seeping out of the pores of all those people in that advert.
And you know, that's your opinion. I don't agree with you, and I think it's more like a thrilling, exciting, modern slant. And look, obviously the Jaguar logo has been rebranded, and I think they're telling you here's what's to come. It's storytelling, it's emotive.
What's the story,
you know,
Amy?
2026.
Amy, what's the story?
That there's something exciting to come.
What's exciting?
And, you know,
What is it?
They're gonna, all the things they actually say. They don't want to be ordinary. They want to live vivid. They want to copy nothing. They want to break molds. I mean, that's the point of that sledgehammer there. 2026, they're going all electric, like Philip said. And, you know, I think it's an exciting time. The world is moving forward. It's a 90-year-old company. They need to keep up with the times. There's always going to be a legacy. You know, it's Jaguar. Okay. We know the car, we know the history, and now it's time to move forward and keep up with modern times.
Okay. Philip, last word to you, please.
Well, I think it's just absolutely crazy. It's wokery gone mad. There's always been a passion about Jaguar. I remember the head of Jaguar in the States telling me many years ago, people would say, I like my Mercedes, but I love my Jaguar. It needs to be a passion. I mean, this logo is just ridiculous, isn't it? Okay. It takes a long time to build a brand. You can crash it overnight.
And they've done it. They've wrecked it. Gone. John Prescott would be absolutely flabbergasted. Amy, Philip, thank you very much for your company. I'll tell you what, if I had a Jaguar, I'd be returning. I'd be handing it in. Jaguar Land Rover have released a statement. They said our brand relaunch for Jaguar is a bold and imaginative reinvention, and as expected, it's attracted attention and debates. We've not forgotten our heritage in any way. We are a brand with heritage, not a heritage brand. Again, I'm not quite sure what that means. They say a lot, but don't really mean anything much. Coming up, I'll bring you more of my exclusive interview with Eric Trump. But next, farmers were out in force in Westminster yesterday. I'll be joined by someone who was there with all the juicy details next. This is Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 incredible young people from Essex are planning to become the youngest people ever to row, not sail, row, across the Atlantic Ocean.
It's about for 3,000 miles?
It is.
Give or take.
Almost exactly that, Sam.
The 3 flying fish, so-called, consists of Anna, Dunk, Harry, Alan and Rowan Daly, who are preparing to row that 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. It would be the second largest ocean in the world. And the trio are aiming to do that challenge in support of the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that Anna and Harry from the Flying Fish join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
I think the 2 of you are bonkers, but brilliant. Absolutely incredible what you're doing to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Why did you want to do this?
So our third person, Rowan, his friend actually died. So when he was in secondary school, I believe, one of his peers passed away, and Teenage Cancer Trust supported them and their family a lot. So it was definitely the right charity. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely awful. So you wanted to do something to raise money for teenage cancer. Why rowing?
So my dad did it in 2021.
The trip, the Atlantic trip?
Yeah, he rowed it as a pair. Where we live in Essex, they actually build the boats there. So we used to cycle round there past the boatyard, and he got interested and actually did it. He was the first year after COVID. And one night, we all met in the Air Cadets, so one night after Air Cadets, Rowan actually dropped me off home and the boat was outside. We were obviously waiting to get it sold. And I think he was asking some questions, and we stood there at my porch and went, Rowan said, I reckon we could do that. And I was like, yeah, I reckon we could. And then we brought Harry on board, and that's kind of how it all came together.
If people are watching and they want to support you, do you have a
Yeah, we've got
GoFundMe page
social
yet?
media platforms at
Right.
The Free Flying Fish. That's Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and our GoFundMe links in all of the bios on there.
Fantastic.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Ben Leo in for Patrick Christys tonight. There was a massive protest, of course, in London yesterday. The farmers revolting against Labour's inheritance tax raid. I'm joined now by one of those who attended, Oliver Noloza. Oliver, good evening. Thank you for joining me. First of all, what was it like yesterday in London? Did you feel a sense of camaraderie amongst your farming colleagues?
So, Ben, I felt incredibly relaxed. I came up from Wiltshire. Obviously, we've got a food business down there. And I got on the train from Warminster. Nice and casual. It just felt really, really relaxed. I knew the day was going to go really, really well. And yeah, I mean, I met a few fellow farmers on the train. Really, really nice bunch. Made sure got up to Whitehall, plenty of time. And we got to Richmond Terrace at about 11:15. And straight away, really, really good bunch of like-minded people.
Are they going to listen to you, the government? Because Angela Rayner today at the Dispatch box suggested there might be even more inheritance tax raids on you to come, let alone reversing the decision. Do you think Labour are listening to you, this government?
Obviously, today, I was listening to Farage yesterday. Absolutely, 100% agree with what he was saying. What I really, really think at the moment is it's a bloody national disgrace. I mean, what is Starmer doing? What is Angela Rayner? As Clarkson Jeremy said last night, it was a rushed affair. What were the government thinking to put on this when we've just come out of we've just had the budget. We're going with huge amounts of austerity at the moment. I think the Labour government, a lot of the MPs are really waking up to smell that coffee, and I think a lot of them are.
Jeremy Clarkson was there yesterday, of course. He is playing a pivotal part in this fight back against the government. Would you like to see Jezza get involved in politics?
I very much would love that, Ben. So I actually tweeted. Well, I buy a copy of The Sun today, and obviously Jezza was all over the Sun. I put that up on his Instagram wall. He's put it up on his own wall, and Jeremy Clarkson should be our PM. Absolutely, he is 100%. He is just so united with the British people from all walks of life. And exactly that's what I stand for, Ben. We want to support British farmers, and that's what I stand for.
OK, good stuff. Oliver Noloza, thank you for joining me, and we'll be keeping tabs of you and indeed your colleagues in the weeks to come here on GB News, of course. OK, another big hour coming up on Patrick Christys tonight with me, including the second half of my exclusive interview with Eric Trump from Scotland. This is the nitty-gritty of the interview. He gets stuck into Labour, Sadiq Khan, Sir Keir Starmer, tariffs. There's been reports of £20 billion tariffs slapped on the UK once Donald Trump gets in. We'll find out whether that's true or not. And also, do the likes of Sadiq Khan and Labour gobbing off and all the activists going to America to campaign, is that putting our future relationship with the USA at risk? You'll find out in just a tick. This is Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. Back in just a tick. But first, wrap up very warm. Here's your weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's snow in the forecast for parts of Scotland and also later on in parts of the southwest. But for many of us, it's going to be dry, plenty of sunshine, but it is going to be feeling cold. That's all thanks to this northerly flow that's stretching across the country, bringing us that risk of snow and the cold feel to the weather. So plenty of wintry showers moving in their way across northern parts of Scotland. These falling as sleet and snow, particularly across high ground, where we're expecting some significant accumulations. For much of the country, there's lots of dry weather on offer this evening, plenty of clear skies, so a sharp frost and plenty of icy stretches by the time we reach the morning. And then some outbreaks of rain just clipping the parts of the southwest by the time we reach Thursday morning too. So plenty of wintry showers continuing across northern parts of Scotland, these feeding inland at times too, with some sleet and some snow. Some just feeding into northern parts of Northern Ireland, perhaps northern parts of Wales too. But for many across northern parts of England, elsewhere across England and Wales, plenty of clear skies to go around. So once again, a sharp frost and some icy stretches. So do take care for the Thursday morning commute. Across the southwest, though, a different story. We have outbreaks of rain just clipping Devon and Cornwall, later on into southern parts of England and Wales. This heavy at times of falling as sleet and snow over high ground, though it's not out of the question that some flurries could fall to lower levels too, which may cause some disruption. Wintry showers continuing across the north, but once again across Wales and the central slice of the UK, plenty of sunshine to go around, though it is going to continue to feel cold. As we head into Wednesday, there is still a risk of some snow showers, particularly around any exposed coasts. But once again, there's still going to be plenty of sunshine on the cards. Still feeling particularly chilly, though, especially in any brisk winds that will catch across any exposed coasts. To finish off the week and into the weekend, we're expecting further unsettled weather with heavy rain and some strong winds. So do keep an eye on our forecasts.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. and this is a very special edition of Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Ben Leo. Tonight I bring you the second half of my exclusive interview with Eric Trump, the businessman's son of US President-elect Donald Trump, and he doesn't hold back.
You know, be nice. Be kind. We have got the greatest relationship of two superpowers, arguably ever.
Be nice, be kind, a fierce warning to Labour politicians after weeks, months and even years of abuse towards Donald.
I don't give a damn about the mayor of London. These are not things that keep me up at night. Listen, does your dad? I can tell you he does not either.
So will gobby Trump haters like Sadiq Khan and Angela Rayner land us with a £20 billion worth of crippling tariffs?
Stations like the BBC, I think if you fast forward 10 years, if they keep it up and they show no independent thought, no independent journalism, are going to fail to exist.
No love lost between the Trumps and the BBC, but meanwhile...
So it's fair to say you and your father and your family and the team, GB News fans.
We're GB News fans.
Of course they do, and they're in good company too with you at home. Elsewhere tonight, the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are on the way, and my top panel are ready to go too. I'm joined by Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the former Labour Party candidate, Susie Stride. Big next hour coming up, including what does Donald Trump really think of Sadiq Khan, and is he going to cripple Britain with those whopping tariffs? First, though, your news headlines with Sophie Reaper.
Thank you, Ben, and a very good evening to you. These are your latest headlines. Today, there have been unconfirmed reports that Ukraine has fired long-range British Storm Shadow missiles into Russian territory for the first time. A spokesperson for PM Keir Starmer said his office would not be commenting on reports or operational matters. Britain has previously said Ukraine could use Storm Shadow missiles within Ukrainian territory, but the government has been pressing the United States to allow their use to strike targets inside Russia for several months. Speaking exclusively to GB News, Tory party leader Kemi Badenoch said we need to do everything in our power to support Ukraine.
I would like to see de-escalation, but that needs to start with the Russians, who are the aggressor in this conflict. I believe that supporting Ukraine is the right thing. This is a proxy war that Ukraine is fighting on behalf of the rest of Europe, and I think we need to do everything we can to support them. Using British missiles at a time when we believe that Ukraine is fighting for all of Europe, in my view, is not the right way to look at things. Do we want Ukraine to win this war or not? And are we prepared to support them to win this war? That is what I believe.
And UK inflation jumped last month, in part due to rising energy prices. The inflation rate hit 2.3% in October, an increase from 1.7% in September. Meanwhile, annual gas and electricity bills rose by about £149 last month, although prices are rising much slower than in recent years. Treasury Chief Secretary Darren Jones insisted the latest inflation figures were, quote, good news. But Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp told GB News earlier that everyone will be worse off.
This is not an accident that inflation has jumped up. It's a consequence of what this Labour government has done. And it's particularly galling because in government, we spent quite a long time in the last 2 years battling to get inflation down. There was obviously globally high inflation a couple of years ago. We got it under control, and Labour have made a load of bad decisions in the last few months that are now putting inflation back up. And that means every single one of your viewers, every single one, is paying today higher prices as a result of decisions that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have made. And actually, you know what? Inflation affects the NHS as well. So the NHS, police forces, schools, they're all going to be paying higher prices as well for the things that they buy to run the NHS. So it's bad for the NHS as well as being bad for you and me and every single one of your viewers.
And there was a very musical surprise for passengers at London St Pancras Station earlier today. That's right, it appears that Jeff Goldblum is a man of many talents. The actor is in the capital following the premiere of Wicked on Monday night, in which he plays the Wizard of Oz. So is it any wonder he was treating commuters to a magical performance on the piano today? Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophie Reaper. More from me in the next hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. Now, I'm about to bring you the third part of my exclusive interview with Eric Trump. I popped up to Scotland yesterday to speak to him, and he has a lot to say about attacks on free speech in the UK. Is Donald Trump going to act crippling tariffs on Britain? And, not forgetting, the role Labour activists played in the recent US election. Let's take a listen.
I feel bad for all the people who are being censored every single day. You know, Elon was right. You know, people send out a tweet expressing frustration, expressing this, and all of a sudden they come and they get arrested. That's a very, very dangerous precedent to set. And I hope society rejects it categorically.
So do you agree with Elon Musk that it's echoes of a Stalin-esque state, what's going on right now? Because as you said, we've had journalists who've had knocks at the doors from police.
Listen, I'm not going to go down that road because it's going to just create clickbait. I think it's very unhealthy when, you know, somebody posts something on Twitter and they get arrested, you know, 3 minutes later, right? I mean, now I come from a country where we have a First Amendment right, and that First Amendment is freedom of speech. It's followed by the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment ensures that you always have freedom of speech, right? And so there's nothing more important to Americans than their First Amendment right to be able to say whatever they want. Now, hey, there can be consequences for saying what you want. You could lose your job, you could do something, but doesn't mean that the government can come knock on your door and send you to jail because you oppose, you know, some liberal view. I think that it's a very dangerous precedent what's getting set if people are getting arrested. Hey, you see the same thing in China right now, right? I mean, there are protests, and you know, the people are literally going to jail for voicing frustration against the government. It's a horribly dangerous, slippery slope, and I just I hope it gets rejected as quickly over here as it was rejected in the United States.
Well, lots of Brits would like to know whether I mean, do you think your father would have any influence over this government here in terms of free speech and freedom of expression? I mean, could he lean on our Labour government to?
Listen, at the end of the day, I think my father's going to take care of the United States of America. And I think you're going to have a lot of eyes following the United States in so many ways. You know, that's generally how it works.
So more lead by example as opposed to...
Yeah, lead by example.
Yeah.
I can tell you he's 100% committed to, clearly he's committed to free speech because there's no one that's been censored more than him, right? This is a man that was kicked off of Twitter, kicked off Facebook, kicked off of Instagram. We created Truth Social, which is our kind of mobile app, as a way for him to communicate to the masses based on the fact that he was censored by everybody else. Now the pendulum has shifted, and the pendulum has shifted in a major way because people spoke out, but also because you had great people like Elon Musk who put an end to that nonsense. And what also happened is this other interesting paradigm. You realize that mainstream media in our country no longer had relevance. And yet these podcasters literally using iPhones to communicate were getting 20, 30, 50 times the views of these major networks like CNN and BBC, and who had the biggest newsrooms in the world, the highest paid anchors, and they became irrelevant in the United States of America. You look at the viewership of CNN versus the viewership of Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Rogan's doing it in a studio the size of this room with 3 cameras and unpaid guests. And his viewership's 100 times that of CNN. What's happened is the mainstream media in our country has made themselves irrelevant.
Well, look what they did just before the polls opened. You had the rally at Madison Square Garden, and they were calling it a Hitler rally and trying to, you know, draw parallels to the Nazi Party. It was just absurd. And I think if you ask most people here, when Kamala Harris came out with that Hitler rhetoric and they made that comparison, I think at that point most right-thinking people knew they were getting desperate, and it was...
Well, first of all, the Democratic Party in our country has done that every election cycle for the last 40 years. So let's start there, right? So this isn't new. Second of all, I'm pretty sure that Hitler wasn't promoting free speech, small government, you know, the right for people to own firearms, right? You know, I think, you know, I don't think they were, you know, asked to have independent voice, right? And you look at the opposite side, and what are they promoting? They're promoting big government, you know, no right to self-defense, you know, censorship. I mean, if you want to talk about a party that espouses those values, you know, it's kind of interesting. I could draw a lot of comparisons, but
yeah.
I think it's gross and disgusting when you take the worst mass killer in arguably the history of humanity and charge a guy who left a beautiful lifestyle to go save a country.
The no-war president.
Created the greatest economy ever.
Yeah.
No wars, no conflicts, peace through strength. the Abraham Accords, peace in the Middle East.
What's your advice to Britain and to Brits? Who should we side with? The US or Europe? Can we trust the US to take us under your wing and guide us through this sort of new dawn of society?
Well, I think it's America's role to guide everybody through, that kind of new dawn of reality, right? And I'm not just talking about the UK. I'm not just talking about Europe. Certainly those will follow quickly, but I can tell you there's a lot of Middle Eastern countries, a lot of countries in the Gulf that are desperate for America to continue to guide the world. Because when you have a weak power structure in America, you have a weak world. It's just the reality of how it works. Iran wasn't firing hundreds of missiles when you had a strong president. In fact, Iran was bankrupt.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you have a power vacuum. You have a weak president in the United States, and they become rich, they become emboldened, and the world goes to hell.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's just obviously the UK that's looking to follow America. I really do think the whole world is looking to follow.
I guess what I'm talking about is specifically in terms of a trade deal and tariffs. Your father's talks about the need for tariffs to put America first. Would that include the UK? Because there were reports in recent days that tariffs to the UK from the US would cost us around £20 billion to our GDP.
Well, listen, I think that's ultimately his call to make, and I think tariffs are normally in response to something. My father's not a guy who just wants to tariff people just for fun, right? Tariffs are normally a response to something. I mean, China has been sending their crap to America for years and years and years, and we try and send a Ford truck to China. They'll let it sit on a ship for 6 months, and then they'll send it back. And then when we decide to put tariffs on them, they'll say, oh, well, that's not free trade. It's like, well, you wouldn't take our truck, but yet you want to dump all your crap into the United States of America, put all our workers out of jobs. No, that's not going to happen, right? So normally a tariff is really a response to something else. If call it the European Union was tariffing us as they have before, then sure, he would absolutely tariff them. And so I think it really is going to ultimately depend on the actions of various countries. And if true, free, and fair trade can be established, I think there's no one who would love it more than my father. If that can't be established, I think he would use tariffs, yes.
So your feeling is, by default, your father would like a tariff-free agreement with the UK, you think?
Listen, I think my father generally likes free trade. But free trade has not been free. All right. And so people like to hide behind the guise of the words free trade, but it's just the guise of cheap words. Again, it hasn't been free. And so as a country, we've been ripped off by everyone. We've been ripped off by China. We've been ripped off by Vietnam. We've been ripped off by the European Union. We've been ripped off by NATO. We're the only country that was fulfilling our total 4% of GDP to NATO. You had all these other big countries around the world, including Germany at the time, that's contributing 1% to NATO.
And getting gas from Russia at the same time.
Go figure.
Yeah,
go figure. They're making a country wealthy while we're while not contributing their fair share, while we're contributing our 4% of a much larger GDP to these causes. And I'm telling you, that's not going to happen under Donald Trump. I mean, the days of America being stupid are over. I mean, just the days of America being stupid are over. It won't happen. And so I think my father would love nothing better to have a great relationship with the UK. He adores this country. Hence the reason he's put hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into building the greatest property on earth. There's no place in the world he'd rather have a great relationship with. But again, he still has to protect the financial interests of the United States of America. And so I think he would love to see a great trade deal. I think he'd like to see a trade deal that reciprocated for both parties. I can tell you, if anybody thinks they're going to pull the wool over his eyes and have some kind of one-sided trade arrangement where they're getting all the benefit and the United States is getting none, I can tell you that won't work. And it's not going to work for anybody.
Does the behaviour of some Labour activists in this country, of course, we had around 100 Labour activists, very bizarrely go to the US in key battleground states, Pennsylvania, campaigning for Kamala Harris, Tim Walz. Then we had comments, even post-election, from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who I guess trebled down on his rhetoric about your dad, calling him a racist, calling him a homophobe. I made the point saying, oh, well, Sadiq Khan said, he doesn't like me because of the colour of my skin. I made the very simple point, well, in that case, why is Vivek Ramaswamy leading up the Department for Government Efficiency, and so on and so on. Does the behaviour of Labour activists, Labour MPs. Would that stick in your father's mind when it comes to trade deals and tariffs?
I mean, I don't think it helps. Do I think it's tone deaf that there are certain leaders of, certain countries who 2 days before a U.S. election comes out and calls it incorrectly for the opposite party? That in the biggest blowout election in, arguably American history. Do I think that helps foreign relations? No, I don't think that helps foreign relations.
Well, there we go. What do you think? Do Labour types such as Sadiq Khan just need to keep their mouths shut in the interest of the nation? Eric Trump seems to think so. Let's get reaction now from Namiki Konst, who's a political analyst and former Democratic National Committee Commissioner. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me. First of all, your thoughts, please, on Eric Trump's suggestion that the USA now is going to be leading this new kind of dawn of the West, and everybody else, including the UK, is going to be following suit.
Well, I mean, listening to Eric, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, Trump talk about putting money into the education department instead of protecting Ukraine when they're being unilaterally attacked by Russia, an adversary, is comical. I mean, this is the same day that the Trump administration has put forth somebody who ran the WWE to run the education department after they've already acknowledged that they are going to dismantle the education department. I mean, this is a man who has so little in touch with the American people and the working class, and he's using that as a tool to amp up Donald Trump's foreign policy mission, which is frankly to weaken the United States and his relationship and strengthen his relationship with Vladimir Putin, who he has been openly in conversation with over the last several years. So I think this is extremely concerning at this point, and that, if we want to stabilize our democracy, if we want to make sure this world order is intact, as Eric Trump said, then you really need to be protecting the American people, supporting unions in the United States, which they do not, and also keeping, our alliances in order, including with UK.
I think Eric was making the point that the money would be better spent on schools and hospitals and infrastructure, the money that they're sending to Ukraine, and indeed the UK is sending to Ukraine, because Donald Trump says he will end the war in Ukraine, Russia, very, very swiftly. So there won't be a need for any more money. That was his point, I think. I mean, that's a good thing, no?
Well, he's not doing either one of those. They want to literally take apart the Department of Education. They have not invested in schools or roads as Joe Biden has. And furthermore, they don't want to stabilize the world order. So, they talk about not spending money in Ukraine. Well, that's because they have an alliance with Vladimir Putin, to the point where Donald Trump...
I mean, where's your proof for that, saying they have an alliance with Vladimir Putin? Go on.
Well, let's start off with the fact that 3 weeks ago, it was exposed and not denied by the Trump campaign, by the way, that Donald Trump was in conversation with Vladimir Putin during the pandemic. When Donald Trump was denying the pandemic in the United States, he was giving vaccines to Vladimir Putin in Russia when he wasn't doing it to his own American people. I mean, this is somebody who, as far back as 1978, was receiving funds and support from oligarchs in Russia for his own hotels. I mean, this is not somebody who is not foreign to the Russian oligarch influence network. And I think in the UK, you guys should be extremely on alert about this, because they've influenced your elections as well.
I think you forget he was a businessman before ever venturing into politics. He's got towers all over the world, so of course he's going to take investment from people in Moscow for his towers and business ventures and so on. And also with regards to the vaccines, I mean, he's still now, to the detriment of his own supporters, some who are very clearly anti-vaccine, calls himself the father of the vaccines. He delivered Operation Warp.
He calls himself the father of IVF. He calls himself the father of everything. What Donald Trump says is not reality. This is a person who did not respond to the pandemic within months, and at the expense of his own voters, by the way. Conservative voters in Florida were dying at a rate, older voters in Florida were dying at a rate much larger than the rest of the country. I mean, he has a problem with truth. He has a problem in terms of keeping this working class image. But this is a man who, of course, whose great grandfather, he talks about not wanting to be part of this Nazi rhetoric that's been put out there, but his grandfather was aligned with the Nazi party. I'm sorry. As a Democrat.
Are you talking about Donald Trump?
Yeah, his father, Fred Trump. My mentor, I'm gonna give you a little lesson here. My mentor was a man named Wayne Barrett. Now, this is important. Wayne Barrett was the first person to ever write a story on Donald Trump. Donald Trump in New York. He was a famed investigative reporter. He wrote a book on Donald Trump and the rise of Donald Trump and 2 on Rudy Giuliani. And that was as far back as the early 1980s. This is not new information.
I'm sorry, that's not true. You're saying Donald Trump's grandfather was associated with the Nazi Party?
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely not true. Sorry.
100% true. This has been documented. I mean, but this is really important. I think people for a foreign audience does not know that people like myself, a New Yorker, who is trained and educated by the first reporter on Donald Trump, and Fred Trump, by the way, who died the day before Donald Trump was inaugurated, who Roger Stone himself said he would piss on the grave of this man. This is a person who knew about this far back. We as a society need to acknowledge this. Donald Trump, just because the Mueller report got dismissed in Congress does not mean it's true.
The Russia collusion hoax. I respect you for coming on, but I do struggle to take anything you say seriously because you mentioned his links with Russia. The Russian collusion hoax was paid for by the Clinton campaign. It was
no, that's a report. That's a report. And a report being paid by
the Steele dossier. I'm talking about the Steele dossier. The Mueller investigation. Absolute nonsense as well. Cleared on all charges. Russia. Nonsense. Absolute BS.
It's not nonsense. It's something that in a congressional hearing did not move forward. Does not mean that it's not true. And that's something that the right wing has been so effective at trying to push in their own audience. But the reality is Donald Trump admitted a couple months ago that he was on the phone with Vladimir Putin. Are you saying that Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump weren't on the phone during the pandemic?
We're running out of time, but Namiki, let me just tell you this now. There was no clear evidence of what you just said about Trump's grandfather and the Nazi Party. I know that for a fact. There's no evidence. Hang on a minute. There's no evidence that Donald Trump colluded with Russia. It was the Steele dossier funded by the Clinton campaign, and the Mueller investigation cleared him as well. So let me respectfully suggest to you, Namiki, this is the exact reason the Democrats got annihilated a couple of weeks ago. You lost the Electoral College. You lost the popular vote.
In swing states. This is important. So you as a reporter should fact check Eric Trump because he said it was the greatest win in history. That is fundamentally not true. There have been wipeouts throughout Democratic
They won the popular vote for the first time in decades. I was in New York on election night. I was at your home on election night, Namiki. The 5 boroughs of New York that had the biggest swing from Democrat to Republican in many, many decades.
Yeah, 3 whole points. That's the biggest swing because the Republicans were so weak in New York. But I love how Republicans spin this. It's really true. 2.5 points is what he won by in 7 swing states, and that was up against.
You got annihilated all over the US. You got annihilated, and I'll tell you why. Because you say stuff like that.
2 years from now, Donald Trump's going to lose Congress and the Senate because that's how history moves. And it's to depend on a YouTube vote to swing 2.5 points, 2.5 points average in 7 swing states. Yes, he won them. I'll give him that, but he did not win it by a wipeout.
Namiki, come on. He won the popular vote. Come on. Anyway, look, I appreciate you being with me.
But you guys didn't admit winning the popular vote. He won the popular vote by 5, 6.
Well, when Hillary won the popular vote, you guys were demanding that that's how the election should be run in future. So anyway, Namiki Cons,
I was reforming the Democratic Party. All right.
We're running out of time. Thank you for sparring with me. I appreciate it. And we'll catch up soon. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Oh, OK. Right, there we go. That was spicy. I'll bring you the final part of my exclusive interview with Eric Trump in just a tick and get back to my panel here in the studio for reaction 2. Eric has a very strong message for the UK.
Be nice. Be kind. We have got the greatest relationship of 2 superpowers, arguably ever.
All of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are hot off the press as well. Stay with me. Back in just a tick.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The birth rate in Britain has sunk to 1.49, well below replacement rate. Yet policies pursued by both major parties are still to spend huge sums to encourage parents back to their work when their children are still at preschool age. Should we not be helping parents to spend longer at home, asks his new book, whilst recognising that in an age of sex equality, the question is fraught. David Goodhart joins me now.
We undervalue the domestic realm, and that has led to lots of the most negative trends in British society. About half of children in the UK are not living with both of their biological parents by the age of 14. We have, of families with dependent children, about 24-25% are single-parent households. Mainly mothers, and they're doing, valiant work. But of course, it means you don't have the investment in children that a two-parent family can give. I mean, the reason why it's a care dilemma is that a lot of these negative trends are also kind of intimately related to positive things, like that movement of women into work, the fact that women are no longer so defined by marriage and motherhood, the fact that women and men are freer to leave unhappy relationships. And the challenge for modern liberal societies is, how we hold on to those freedoms but get a better balance, which means, I think, investing more in the domestic realm. We spend a total now of £9 billion on childcare subsidies. Why not give that subsidy direct to young parents so they could then choose whether to subsidise themselves, as it were, to be able to afford to stay at home, or to give it to a nursery, or to give it to granny, or to keep it in the home.
GB News.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. I'm just giggling at that last Democratic guest still. Very funny. Lots of you on gbnews.com/you'll say big fans of her, maybe not. Now, the final part of my interview with Eric Trump from Scotland yesterday. He had a pretty strong message for the UK government here, Sir Keir Starmer et al., and he reveals that the Trumps are GB News fans. Get a load of this.
Our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, we understood he did speak to your father post-election. Is that right? Are you aware of that?
They had a nice conversation.
What about Sadiq Khan?
I don't know if they've spoken. But I do see the rhetoric. And again, it doesn't, keep me up at night. But oftentimes I reflect on the fact that I think it's just foolish. Foolish when you have somebody who would otherwise be the greatest advocate for maybe the two greatest allies that the world could ever have, which is the United States and the UK. We have been bound at the hip. We have been bound culturally for so long. We have the same interests globally. And it's sometimes infuriating when you have leaders that, maybe want to get a couple additional clicks on Twitter or Facebook. I don't even think it does that for them, to tell you the truth. But they run out, they say bombastic things, usually call it wrong, by the way. I don't think that does help relations between two countries. It would have been a lot easier had they just stayed on the sideline, let the people of an independent nation vote, and then embrace whoever the ultimate leader was that was chosen by the people of that nation.
I don't know how you communicate with your father and your siblings and so on. Do you have a WhatsApp group or anything going on? How does it work?
Now, my father's not on a WhatsApp, but now our siblings, we're pretty funny. We do a pretty good job communicating amongst each other.
Do you ever share sort of the news stories from the US? For example, when the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, made those inane comments a few weeks ago, do you ever pop off a message and say, "Oh, Dad, Sadiq's been at it again"?
Honestly, I don't give a damn about the Mayor of London. Yeah. These are not things that keep me up at night. Listen,
does your dad?
I can tell you he does not either. I run a great company. I'm responsible for tens of thousands of employees around the world. We operate the best hotels, the best golf courses, the best estates, residential buildings, commercial buildings. And I fought like hell to get a man that I really believe in elected to the presidency. And I hold down a lot of other functions in our lives and our families, and I'm immensely proud of all of that. I can promise you I don't go to bed at night thinking about what one of 200 world leaders thinks at any given moment.
Yeah.
If I did, I would be a basket case. I would probably have been thrown in rehab at this point, and I wouldn't be able to function going through life.
I do often wonder how your father does it. You know, I guess.
You know how he does it?
How?
The same as me. He doesn't give a damn.
Yeah.
Right? He understands it's just a game. He understands the same people who oftentimes call it wrong will come and go 300 times before he does. The same people that were fighting him 20 years ago have faded into oblivion. And guess what? He just won the United States presidency. And I think when you start compartmentalizing things as a game, whether it be the media, whether it be certain foreign leaders who say foolish things that are counterproductive to their own societies and, you know, trade relations and so many other things later on, you know, when you start letting those things bother you, I'm telling you, it's just, it's going to weigh you down.
Even the BBC here, 24 hours after your father won that election, I was watching the news in my hotel room, and the headline was, Donald Trump puts no price on his plan to deport 11 million immigrants from the US. The key word there being illegal. So even 24 hours after, the BBC were at it again.
Yeah. It's exactly why unconventional media is winning the race and winning quickly against all odds. Stations like the BBC, I think if you fast forward 10 years, if they keep it up and they show no independent thought, no independent journalism, are going to fail to exist. And you remember me saying that. Again, stations like CNN, which were once great media outlets, are almost irrelevant in, you know, the largest superpower in the world. They're almost irrelevant. And I think they're going to, you know, fade to exist very, very quickly because of the statements that they made that are just categorically rejected by the vast majority of sane-minded individuals who see statements like that and laugh.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much GB News you watch or your father catches any clips online. Have you seen anything?
I have, and we're a big fan.
Oh,
we're a big fan of a bunch of people on your network.
Talking about legacy media and new media, your father, of course, went on Joe Rogan, Theo Von, et cetera, Adin Ross. Are the reports correct? Was Barron the mastermind behind that, Barron Trump?
Yeah. Well, Barron was certainly behind some of the kind of young millennials that my father was going on, and absolutely he pushed that, and I pushed for a lot of the, you know, really a lot of the podcasts. I mean, if I poll my friends, my closest friends in the world, you know, most of them are not consuming media vis-a-vis kind of the traditional channels anymore. They're just not.
As you said, it wasn't just a win for America. There's massive cohorts of the population in the UK who's looking to the United States and looking to your father, hoping that he would come back into power to kind of instill some common sense and solve the chaos that's kind of taking over the West. That's happened. There were massive celebrations here, let me tell you that. There were a lot of very happy people. Yeah. However, we are dealing with a particularly interesting, let's say that new Labour government, new Labour administration. Elon Musk said it was Stalin-like what was happening here, particularly with the farmers' protests today. Have you seen what's going on with the farmers in Britain today?
Yeah, we love the farmers. We love the farmers over here. I can say that unequivocally. It's sad what's happening over here, and it was really sad actually what was happening to farmers in the United States. And it seems like there's a lot of commonality. The difference is now I think the farmers really have a voice, and I hope the farmers here find the same voice that the farmers in the U.S. found. And by the way, I can say that a lot of industries over here who have been totally mistreated. The greatest oil and gas in the world is in Aberdeen.
Yeah,
I mean, arguably the greatest in the world, and the way they've been treated is horrible. But the way so many people have been treated, you know, business leaders, you know, taxed to death, you know, unable to survive.
Where does that come from? What is the agenda behind that? I mean, as you said, they want to turn Aberdeen, for example, into this rich oil and gas hotspot of the United Kingdom into some net zero quasi-paradise. What is the agenda behind that?
All while buying from Russia and buying from Iran. It makes no sense to me. And America was under that same path as well. And again, the people of our country rejected it categorically. And, our path has changed. It's done a 180, 2 weeks ago. You've got the greatest natural resources in the world in Aberdeen, and unlimited oil and gas. And it's a great benefit to all of Europe, and it's a great benefit to a country who's otherwise become dependent on countries around the world who do not have your best interest at heart, or America's best interest. When I say your best interest, really the best interest of the West at heart.
What's your message to the farmers? Have you got any words of advice or wisdom for them in their fight against what's going on?
No, we love you and we're sorry. No different than farmers in the U.S. We love them and we're sorry. They were treated horribly. So oftentimes the farms were taken away. So oftentimes regulation killed their businesses, made it impossible for them to put food on the table, made it profitable for them to run profitable enterprises. They were taxed to death. They were regulated to death. The cost of fuel killed them, absolutely killed them. Inheritance tax, which my father actually eliminated for farmers in the United States.
So he scrapped it.
So many farmers were land wealthy and cash poor. And all of a sudden you'd have the patriarch or the matriarch of a family die. The farm would be in their name. And all of a sudden they had to pay 50% inheritance tax on a massive piece of land. And what do you think happened? There was no longer a second generation or a third generation of farmers. That farm was sold, typically to a big corporation.
Yeah.
And the true kind of very wholesome farmer who wanted to work their land with their own hands failed to exist. And it went to some massive conglomerate. And that was not good for society. And so my father eliminated the inheritance tax as it related to the transfer of agriculture, really, in the United States. He helped them tremendously. He also helped with massive subsidies that were super important. He helped by deregulating the farms. I mean, they were being buried in paperwork in the United States. He deregulated that. Obviously, when he brought down the price of oil and gas, it helped tremendously because the amount of diesel being burned in the tractors and so on and so forth. And he was the greatest champion of farmers in our country. And I see what's happening to the farmers over here, and it directly mirrors so much of kind of the strife that so many of the farmers in the United States had for so long.
Exactly the same. And the rhetoric here is that the farmers are rich. They've got £4, £5, £6 million estates. But as you said, they're not waltzing around in quad bikes going on holidays to Dubai. It's all in the asset. They're not cash rich. What is the agenda as a businessman? So the UK Treasury is making just £500 million from this tax on farmers. Not a lot in the grand scheme of things. Do you think there's an alternative or ulterior agenda against farming around the world? Just lastly.
Yeah, is there an alternative agenda? Sure. I don't know. A lot of governments have come out to almost be anti-farmer, and I haven't quite figured out why. I mean, it feels like they're some of the greatest people you have in society, right? I mean, there's people that wake up at the crack of dawn, one of the hardest jobs, tough. Any farmer you've ever met. I mean, a real farmer, not like fake farmer, right? Not like, I've got a flat in London and I've got a little tomato bush on the back porch. I'm talking about real farmer, people who work the land. These are tough, gritty, hardworking people who generally are incredibly patriotic, love family, love God, and just want to work and be left alone. And again, my heart goes out to them because these are real people who are doing the right thing. They're not lazy. They're not trying to live off a subsidy. They're not trying to ask for a free handout. They want to make it, and they're willing to put in the time. They're willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears. But so oftentimes they throw obstacle after obstacle in their face and not allow them to do it. And so, if you can pass a message along on your end, maybe be a little kind and maybe treat other countries and other world leaders with a little respect. And typically honey attracts more than vinegar. And, I think people could probably live by those words. Be nice.
Okay.
Be kind. We have got the greatest relationship of two superpowers, arguably ever.
Great. We'll end on that note. Harry Trump, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Good to see you.
You too. Thank you for being with us.
And there we go. The final words were a warning shot to the UK government, to the likes of Sadiq Khan, MPs, activists. be nice, play kind, because Donald Trump is now soon to be in the White House and he suggests we're going to need him. Let's get the reaction now from the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the former Labour Party candidate, Susie Stride. Mark, what do you make of that warning at the end there?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, he's not as bombastic as his father, but talks in the same sort of game theory way. You know, I liked his reference to honey and vinegar. Look, there's quite a lot to take away from that interview that I think we can be very encouraged about. The big part of the Trump plan that I was very worried about was tariffs. I mean, wrongly, I think politicians think tariffs are a levy on foreign businesses. They're a levy on domestic consumers. It's going to be more expensive for Americans if tariffs come in. But again, the suggestion there was that's part of a negotiating position rather than necessarily an economic and trade policy. I mean, that's what I inferred from what he said. Very strong on deregulation. I'm pretty optimistic about the USA in the coming years. And what's intriguing here is the UK has set itself on a very different economic path to that of the USA, and we'll be able to see in real time which one works. My guess is the USA is going to go supernova and we're going to stagnate.
OK. Adam Brooks, did Eric Trump just confirm what a lot of people suggest this side of the pond, that Labour are going after farmers because it's a corporate land grab?
Yeah, I think you can take that from that. I mean, again, I would like to question why Bill Gates flew in the week before that this budget was announced and then suddenly the farmers are being attacked. There's a lot of conspiracy theories online about that. And
that's because, just to clarify, that's because he's the largest farm owner, landowner in the US, right?
So it's a little bit of a coincidence that a week after he comes in, that they come and attack our farmers. Look, we've got to remember that America is our biggest trade partner. I think it's 17% of our trade is with the US. And I think it's 20% of our exports go to the US as well. We need a good relationship. And one thing that worries me is that we've got childlike, almost student politicians running this country now that can't help but run their mouth. So we've got to be very careful what our politicians say.
Susie, student-like politicians, Labour's end, putting our nation's security at risk?
No, I mean, I think, look, you know, Keir Starmer went and had a nice dinner with Donald Trump in New York and got on very well, which is, you know, important because you need to get on with the President of America. You know, David Lammy. I mean, look, David Lammy made comments, but so did J.D. Vance, and he's ended up as Vice President, you know, and David Lammy has built really good, strong relationships with Donald Trump's team. And I think we're just going to move past this. And I think it's really important what he was saying there. We've always had this special relationship. It's a very important special relationship, especially when you have people like Iran and others kicking off.
OK. All right, well, yeah, Lammy has made inroads, but that was courtesy of Nigel Farage, who brokered a dinner and a meeting between them. But, yes, indeed, the full interview can be seen on the GB News YouTube channel. It was a mammoth one. I could have gone on for hours, in actual fact. He gave us nearly an hour, which was very generous of his time because he was very busy. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, and you can check out the full interview once again. OK, coming up, we'll have all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Something I'm sure that'll feature on all of them is the tragic story of One Direction star Liam Payne, whose funeral took place today. That's next.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's snow in the forecast for parts of Scotland and also later on in parts of the southwest. But for many of us, it's going to be dry, plenty of sunshine, but it is going to be feeling cold. That's all thanks to this northerly flow that's stretching across the country, bringing us that risk of snow and the cold feel to the weather. So plenty of wintry showers moving in their way across northern parts of Scotland, these falling as sleet and snow, particularly across high ground where we're expecting some significant accumulation. For much of the country, there's lots of dry weather on offer this evening, plenty of clear skies, so a sharp frost and plenty of icy stretches by the time we reach the morning. And then some outbreaks of rain just clipping the parts of the southwest by the time we reach Thursday morning too. So plenty of wintry showers continuing across northern parts of Scotland, these feeding inland at times too, with some sleet and some snow. Some just feeding into northern parts of Northern Ireland, perhaps northern parts of Wales too. But for many across northern parts of England, elsewhere across England and Wales, plenty of clear skies to go around. So once again, a sharp frost and some icy stretches. So do take care for the Thursday morning commute. Across the southwest, though, a different story. We have outbreaks of rain just clipping Devon and Cornwall later on into southern parts of England Scotland and Wales. This heavy at times and falling as sleet and snow over high ground, though it's not out of the question that some flurries could fall to lower levels too, which may cause some disruption. Wintry showers continuing across the north, but once again across Wales and the central slice of the UK. Plenty of sunshine to go around, though it is going to continue to feel cold. As we head into Wednesday, there is still a risk of some snow showers, particularly around any exposed coast. But once again, there's still going to be plenty of sunshine on the cards. Still feeling particularly chilly, though, especially in any brisk winds that will catch across any exposed coasts. To finish off the week and into the weekend, we're expecting further unsettled weather with heavy rain and some strong winds. So do keep an eye on our forecasts.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
The first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages have just dropped. Let's start with the Daily Telegraph. Defence cuts as the UK missiles hit Russia. Yeah, good idea. Not. The Eye, UK defies Putin as Ukraine fires British missiles into Russia. We just heard Eric Trump warning against that. We've done it anyway. The Metro, farewell. Liam, heartbreak at One Direction star's funeral. That's Liam Payne, whose funeral was today. Again, the Daily Mirror, farewell, Liam. A picture of Cheryl Tweedy / Cole there. With a floral tribute to Daddy, Liam Payne. The Daily Mail, up to 12 British Storm Shadow missiles fired into Russia. Fears now of World War III. And the Sun newspaper again, all for one. Harry, Louis, Niall, Zayn, and even Cheryl Cole, Cheryl Tweedy there at Liam Payne's funeral today. Adam Brooks, Liam Payne's funeral. I really couldn't believe it actually that he's dead. Again, it reminds me of seeing the sad pictures today that this is such a talented young lad, loved by so many people all around the world.
His death was actually announced when I was on this sofa. It was a big shock a few weeks ago. I've been involved in clubs and bars all my life. I got to meet him about 10, 12 years ago.
What was he like?
A lovely lad, really down-to-earth, normal
During
lad.
his 1D days?
Yeah. And, so I didn't know him, but I know people that know him. He was meant to be a nice guy. And there's a whole generation of pop fans now that are absolutely devastated. You grow up idolising people when you're young, and millions around the world idolised him, and it's a sad day.
Susie, were you a One Direction fan?
I wouldn't say I was a One Direction fan, but I think this is just so tragic, isn't it? He was so young, incredibly gifted, and it's just awful. Yeah, it's really, really sad. I didn't actually realise he had a kid as well.
Yeah, poor son.
I just think it's very sad.
Happens so often in showbiz, doesn't it? I mean, there just seems to be such a high number of tragedies of this sort of live fast, die young world. This, unfortunately, is not a unique case.
Yeah, I've said before, I said in the weeks after his death, you can have all the money in the world, all the freedom in the world, seeming a life of luxury, but it doesn't mean you're immune from the everyday demons and the troubles that escape us. We're just going to hit a very quick break. We'll be back in just a tick.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is The Guardian. They've announced they will no longer post content on Elon Musk's social media platform X, or as it's still known by everybody, Twitter. So they made an announcement to readers. I don't know why they have to announce it. It's like they'd announced they're leaving a party. And why? Oh, I'm leaving the party because there's pineapple in the potato salad and the sangria is warm. I don't know, just go. But they said they considered the benefits of being on the platform were now outweighed by the negatives, citing the often disturbing content and misinformation found on it. But there's going to be a bit less now because The Guardian's not going to be on it. Some of the far-right conspiracy theories that they talk about are now just like 50% of the time they come true. Look at Joe Biden's cognitive decline. That was a far-right conspiracy theory, and then it came true.
They linked to a Zoe Williams article. It was a hyperlink from that exact phrase, far-right conspiracy theories, which you've written a whole article about how dangerous X was now, what a slimy pit of disinformation. And one of the examples she gave was the far-right conspiracy theory that Algerian boxer was actually intersex, which is absolutely... And it was like, she was like, just sued, Elon Musk was named in the libel trial.
If you're really bothered about what X is like, spend more time tweeting back, disagreeing with people, get stuck into the argument.
They could appoint a specific ex-correspondent, couldn't they? They don't have to have the whole newspaper there. It could just be their champion.
The Guardian were worried about misinformation that influences elections. They should have left in 2020 when Twitter, under its previous owners, colluded with the Democrat governments, colluded with executive branches of the government to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. It was classed as fake news. It was actually completely valid and true. And if they want to change people's minds and, make everybody better and more socialist, surely the people like me who are on Twitter are the ones they need to convince. So stay on Twitter and convince me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back. Right, let's look at the Sun front page again. Liam Payne's funeral today from One Direction. Adam, I was just saying that, it doesn't matter how much money you've got, how much freedom you've got, you're not immune from the troubles and everyday strife that everybody else has.
No, and I said to you in the break, some of the most talented people in the world are some of the most unhappiest. And why is that? Sometimes, as we were saying, they're chasing that next sort of high, whether that's natural or a drug-induced high, and sometimes I think that they hit a point where they can't find that happiness. And tragedies like this happen. It's so sad.
Mark, you had something to say about the music industry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge music fan. I wasn't a One Direction fan, but it just does seem to me that there seem to be an extraordinary number of individuals where these tragedies, abound. That, I mean, of course you can say Adam and I were sat on the sofa and you hear the news and it's obviously very upsetting, but it doesn't seem to be particularly unusual in the music industry, despite the great wealth that comes with it, which you should be able to buy, great therapists, huge amounts of healthcare and guidance. Too often, people in this line of work seem to have a tragic and early death.
Susie, my conclusion was that, people, they strive every day to kind of make it and make money and get the amount of fortune that people like Liam Payne had. But once they get there, they kind of realise that, I guess, maybe it doesn't mean anything. So they're still searching for the meaning of everything, I suppose.
Yeah, and I suppose you kind of get to that place and you think, I should be happy. I've got money, I've got everything I ever wanted, but I'm not happy. And I think that can kind of make people even more depressed, which is just extremely sad. And it does make you think, is there anything that can be done to prevent this? Because, it's far too common and it is just very sad,
Yeah, and those pictures today of Liam's coffin going in and his poor dad, who I think is called Jeff, and his mother, just as a father myself, I just watched it and just imagined the pain. I mean, I don't want to think about it, actually. It's just awful. There's the pictures from the funeral today. And it was nice seeing the boys, the One Direction boys, back together. Niall, Louis, Zayn and Harry. Not the reunion we wanted, I suppose, but... dearie me. Our thoughts are with Liam, his family, his poor girlfriend who was there in the days before his death, his dad, of course, and not forgetting his poor son. I think he's got a 7 or 8 year old son, Bear, who is now without a dad. But Cheryl Cole seems like a great mum, and best wishes to her and the family. Mark, Adam, Susie, thank you for your contributions tonight. Sorry it wasn't much, it was a fleeting visit at times, but really appreciate it. Thank you back home. Hope you enjoyed the Eric Trump interview. I'm back tomorrow from 9. Up next, it's Headliners After Your Weather. Have a good night.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's snow in the forecast for parts of Scotland and also later on in parts of the southwest. But for many of us, it's going to be dry, plenty of sunshine, but it is going to be feeling cold. That's all thanks to this northerly flow that's stretching across the country, bringing us that risk of snow and the cold feel to the weather. So plenty of wintry showers moving in their way across northern parts of Scotland, these falling as sleet and snow, particularly across high ground, where we're expecting some significant accumulation accumulations. For much of the country, there's lots of dry weather on offer this evening, plenty of clear skies, so a sharp frost and plenty of icy stretches by the time we reach the morning. And then some outbreaks of rain just clipping the parts of the southwest by the time we reach Thursday morning too. So plenty of wintry showers continuing across northern parts of Scotland, these feeding inland at times too, with some sleet and some snow. Some just feeding into northern parts of Northern Ireland, perhaps northern parts of Wales too. But for many across northern parts of England, elsewhere across England and Wales, plenty of clear skies to go around. So once again, a sharp frost and some icy stretches, so do take care for the Thursday morning commute. Across the southwest, though, a different story. We have outbreaks of rain just clipping Devon and Cornwall, later on into southern parts of England and Wales. This heavy at times of falling as sleet and snow over high ground, though it's not out of the question that some flurries could fall to lower levels too, which may cause some disruption. Wintry showers continuing across the north, but once again across Wales and the central slice of the UK, plenty of sunshine to go around, though it is going to continue to feel cold. As we head into Wednesday, there is still a risk of some snow showers, particularly around any exposed coast. But once again, there's still going to be plenty of sunshine on the cards. Still feeling particularly chilly, though, especially in any brisk winds that will catch across any exposed coasts. To finish off the week and into the weekend, we're expecting further unsettled weather with heavy rain and some strong winds. So do keep an eye on our forecasts.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 86.